Welcome to Let's Be Real 100%, where we are 100% real about life. We know that life happens and we are here to talk about it. And when I say we, I'm talking about it's all God and little old me. Join us as we jump into our topic today. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Be Real 100%, where we have been on an amazing journey through resilience, strength, uh, just encouraging words from others that they have made it through their journey. Y'all, this morning, I literally woke up and I was like, the main person in my life that I know has been through a journey, I have not interviewed yet. I have not talked to her. I haven't had a conversation with her via podcast, y'all, via podcast. But I realized I haven't had a conversation with her. And I was like, how could I? Like, that's rude. But anyway, this episode, y'all, is very, very special to me. This is very, very close to home. I learned stuff about my life that I did not know through someone else's life. And that someone else is my own mother, Evangelist Suzanne Neal. I am super excited about this journey because I can learn some stuff about myself and learn some new stuff about my mom and the strength that she had going through her journey. So I hope you all enjoy this conversation because I always do, every day, all day. But anyway, this episode is special to me and I hope you enjoy it. Talk to y'all soon. Welcome to a episode of Let's Be Real, where this podcast is to where we encourage others to let them know that they are not alone and to know that in this journey we can make it through and know that we all have our own journeys. So, in that, I will open up our podcast with our conversation with a icebreaker. So, my icebreaker for you would be, what song would be your anthem of your life?
What would be that song? Oh my lord. I can think of so many. I'm gonna say Eye of the Tiger.
And why would you choose that song?
Oh my gosh. I have so many in thought right now, but I would choose Eye of the Tiger because it took strength. It took strength, it took courage. It was a fight to get here. So
And
that's why I speak that song.
I can definitely see that in your story, even though if y'all don't know, this is my mother. And when I woke up one morning, to be honest, I woke up the other morning and I was like, I've been on this journey with so many people. And like the first thing that popped in my mind, like a light bulb, when I was like, you know what? Your mom, hello, like she been on this journey in life, and she can tell so many stories of overcoming and how to make it through this journey, whether it was good, bad, or ugly. So definitely excited about this one. This is definitely different, but I'm excited about it.
Yes,
So, all
I
right,
am too. I
let's
am
tell
too.
us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's a lot to tell, but a little bit about me is that I'm a mom, I'm a wife, but more than that, I am a daughter of Zion. The Lord saved me at the age of 19, right in time and on time. By that time in my life, I had already had experienced a lot of things that adults may not have experienced in that time, or if it was something that just wasn't talked about. So I would say that just that part alone, really knowing that God had called me, have chosen me, that was foreign. That was foreign to me at that time, because growing up, I didn't grow up in a what we would call a dedicated to God type of household. We had a lot of things going on. I've been a witness of domestic violence, child abuse, you name it, drug use, just violence. We saw that. and it was definitely um it's God, that have brought me thus far. When I was 19, God saw fit to save me, actually through the voice of my mother-in-law, which is now deceased, but she prayed with me, prayed with me over the phone. One of my aunts was connected to her. I didn't know her, but my aunt would always tell me, ain't nothing wrong with a little prayer. And I was going through so much at that time. By the time I was 19, I had been gang raped. I've been molested. I had done lost custody of one child and had was fighting for the custody of the other two that I had. And so I needed God. I just didn't know that I needed God. I actually thought that I was just, living life. And the way that and the sad thing about all of it for me was that it wasn't that I had done anything wrong, even when it came to my kids, but I was always fighting for them. And I think the fight for me that I had for my kids is because I always felt like no one was there to fight for me.
Right.
And so even though I had children young, even through the gang rape, having a son, that was traumatic really to go through it alone. And when I say alone, I was really alone because I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell nobody of my experience. I just basically went through it as though it didn't happen. I think a part of me was numb because I had already experienced so much, and it was just, you know I was in survival mode. It was like nothing. I was at the point, by the time I was 15, I think I was at the point where I I didn't care. When I say I didn't care, I didn't care about what people thought. So I had my baby, and I brought him home. Unfortunately, I brought him home to a place of domestic violence and child abuse. And hindsight 20, I probably would have given him up for adoption at that point, but I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to it because I wanted him. I wanted somebody to love me because I didn't know what love looked like, and so I wanted to create love for me, and I wanted to love my child or my kids as I began to have them with such an unconditional love that I didn't feel.
Right.
And so, nevertheless, that's a lot, that's a lot for a little bit about myself, but that was a lot.
Right. Now we're going to break that down. We're going to break that all the way down. So we're going to go back to
All
the
right.
beginning. We're going to go back to the beginning. So when you were stating that as a young girl you had a, I would say, interesting home life where it was a lot going on with
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
abuse and child abuse and verbal abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, pretty much all the abuses that you can probably think of. So, as a young girl,
Mhm.
when this all began, where did your mind go when you saw the very first abuse that went on in the home?
Um, I think I was about maybe 5 at the time. Um, my mom had met this guy, and I really don't even remember where she met him, how she met him, or where he showed up. I don't know what. Shut up, Suzanne. I was getting ready to
It
say
just
where that
happened.
snake came up out the rock, but I'm gonna be nice.
Well, it's already been said.
Bless his soul. But I don't know where she found him, but nevertheless, um, he, I was about 5. I think I was about 4 or 5, and I have 2 older brothers. Or I had 2 older brothers. One of them
Mhm.
is deceased. And I saw him literally beat them and with extension cords while they were wet in the bath. When they would get out the tub. My oldest brother, and I can't even tell you why, or for me, there's no reason for that.
Right, right.
But I don't know what his reason was in his mind to think that that was necessary.
Mhm.
And my brother, like I stated, they were 9, and I was 5. One was 7. My youngest older brother was 7, and my
Mhm.
oldest brother was, I want to say he was about 9, maybe 8, but we were all kind of stair step, maybe a
Fair
couple
stuff,
of
yeah.
years or a year and a half apart. And so I remember seeing that, and At that point, I don't think I really was afraid. And I say that because it wasn't happening to me. You know, I knew that they were going through it, but part of me, I think, in looking back at it now, I think part of me felt protected by them because
Hmm.
they were getting the grunt of the hostility that was in the household. Um, at that time, I don't remember seeing my mom actually go through the abuse that I later saw her experience. But I think that was the first time, and for me, in my mind, like I stated, I didn't, I don't think I had enough sense to realize that I should have been scared.
Right.
I was just, I think I was just too young, and I don't think I really could understand the why behind it.
Hmm.
And I remember my brothers coming in the room, because we were like in a, I want to say maybe a two-bedroom apartment at that time, and we had the bunk beds, and I remember us just kind of, nursing each other, kind of just talking to each other. And my oldest brother, he got really, really bitter. And he would often get in trouble. He was skipping school at 9. I mean, he was fighting the
Wow.
police at 9. Yeah, and breaking windows at 9. And I know now, looking back
Hmm.
at it, it was all because of the way that he was
Right.
handled.
Right.
And I remember the police bringing him home, and telling my mom that if if they didn't get a hold to him, that one of them, meaning the police, was going to kill him,
Right.
and which actually happened. When he was 22, he was shot and killed by a Richardson, Texas police officer.
Wow.
So it was like the stage was being set, and
Mm.
all of that anger and all of that bitterness that was there, he had nowhere to go with it,
Right.
and
So were you like the only girl in that time? Because you stated that you had two brothers, then
mm,
you. So you were the only girl.
no, I had a baby sister, but she was so little, she was so little. She was in her months, and so she was more protected, as a baby, of course.
Right.
And and she just I don't think she was exposed until later.
Hmm.
I don't think and I can't really speak or testify for her, but um I don't know if she really understood what was happening. I don't think she did. She couldn't have, because she was too
Right.
young.
So the baby. Right. Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, she was like in her months,
Makes total sense.
like
So like,
10 months.
so in the abuse of that was going on with them, and you were being protected by them, and I'm sure by God for sure. But
Hmm.
whenever the abuse came to you, how did that come about?
Okay, so my brothers, my mom decided to let my brothers go live in Arkansas with my grandmother, and that was at the time they were 9 and about 7 years old. Um, and so when they left, then I became the oldest, you know.
Hmm.
And that's why I say now, and now when I look at it, that's why I say I believe that them being there, taking the grunt of what they were going through, really protected them, because after that they left, then I began to suffer, being molested, and and just mistreated, and so and I remember the first time, it happened, it was like in my mind, I just didn't understand what was happening. I couldn't verbalize it. And I remember, him telling me, you can't tell nobody about this, and and you better not tell nobody about this. And mind you, I'm 5, right? six
Right.
years old, right? And so I'm looking at this person, and I've already seen what he's done to my brothers, and so now guess what? They're not there no more, right? And
Right.
so, in my mind, I'm looking at, as a kid, thinking like, oh, I guess if I say something, then I'm gonna be gone too, and
Right.
or what's gonna happen to me? Am I gonna get, then fear came. I think
Right.
that's when the fear gripped me, and that's why I said, looking at it now, I know without a shadow of doubt, though God protected me
Mhm.
while they were there, but I also know them being there somewhat shielded me as well.
Right.
And I remember missing them so much, because of just those different things that I was experiencing when they left.
Right. Because they wasn't really there to protect you or fight back for you. Um,
Yeah,
as the
yeah,
older
they,
brothers.
yeah, yeah. So I didn't. I didn't. I remember playing with dolls. I remember playing with my little sister. I remember those days, but most of my days was overshadowed with just those experiences. And I began to act out. I began to fight all the time. I began to become the bully, at school that the other kids hate to come see coming,
Yeah.
and it's only because of the way that we, and I'm saying we because my brothers, we were being built.
Right.
And so it was a fight. It was I couldn't fight at home. I couldn't let out that aggression at home because I was a victim at home.
Right.
But at school I could let it all out, and I could be angry, I could be mad, I could take this out somewhere. Was it fair? Absolutely not. But when you're 6, 7, and 8, 9,
Mm.
10, all the way up to you about 14, you don't
Right.
realize that. You don't realize that what you're doing, you're hurting others, and that's why I often say now, um, people that are hurting people, 9 times out of 10 have been hurt,
Right.
and they're just trying to release that pain that they have, and unfortunately, someone else becomes a victim of that.
Right. So, when you say that being from 6 all the way to 14, like, did anybody on the outside may have? I know back then it probably wasn't.
Mm,
People wasn't probably in
yeah.
your business like that, but like, did anybody say, okay, well, Suzanne is dealing with something, and her attitude has changed since she's been in school. Nobody really just acknowledged, or did you ever have a chance to go out and seek or tell anybody that things are going on?
No, because it's sad. It's really sad to say when I look back now. I think about it, and I just feel like nobody really paid attention.
Mm.
I felt like nobody really paid attention to me like that because I was always getting in trouble.
Mm.
And so it was more like, oh, she's just in trouble. She's suspended. She's this. She's that. Back
Mm.
then, nobody really took the time to figure out the why behind the behavior. Well, by
Mm.
now we're living in a time now because many of individuals have grown up in situations, and their own experience shows them a lot about others. And when they see
Mm.
themselves in someone else,
Mm.
they're kind of like, wait, what's really going on with you? We sometimes we pay attention. There are
Right.
those that don't pay attention, but for me personally, my
Mm.
own life experience have taught me to pay attention to people. Have their behavior changed? And why did their behavior change? Did something shift in their life? And that made them um, respond or react in a certain way. And that's one of the reasons why I would tell you all, I don't call kids bad because
Mm.
you don't know what it is that they're
Right.
really dealing with. We just see the fruit on the tree.
Mm.
We don't see the root. The only thing that we can see is the fruit. And so if you're just dealing with fruit, then 9 times out of 10, you're probably dealing with the tree wrong,
Right.
because we're only producing what's being rooted in us.
Mm.
And so, and again, that's experience talking because back then I couldn't. Kids don't know how to express themselves.
Right. Right.
We don't know how to. Kids didn't know how to. We didn't know how to verbalize things.
Right.
And so, just like a baby can't tell you they're hungry but by crying, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so as they grow, they learn how to express themselves. They learn how to use words. And so when they're in pain, what do? They cry,
Yeah,
you
right,
know. And
right.
so it's like we have to understand: is this a cry that I'm
Mhm.
hearing, you know? And so as we grow, as I grew up, as young people, kids grow up today, I'm listening for the cry of them, you know, and is it a cry of pain, and
Right,
where is this pain coming from, you know? And so we as adults don't even know how to express ourselves half the time,
right,
you know.
right.
We
Mhm.
suppress, you know,
Right,
we attack, we retaliate, you know. We don't know how sometimes to express ourselves. So just think about a 5, 6, 7, 8 year old
right,
child, you know,
right,
or a preteen needing to express, hey, this grown man over here is fondling me. This grown
right,
man over here is molesting me. You
right,
know, how do you express that, you know, in a 5 year old body? You know, and you don't even know what molestation is because that's not something that you talk about in the house. You
right,
know, that's not it's something we talk about in our house
right,
because
right,
you know it ain't happening over here. You know,
right,
because you know we guard each other. But
right.
me growing up, that's not something, and even the most households
Mm.
don't talk about it. They suppress it. They put it act as though it didn't happen.
Right.
And you know, and now that I'm an adult, with the experiences that I've had, thanks be to God, you know, He healed me.
Mm.
I've forgiven, you know, and I've forgiven um, my bonus dad because he actually adopted us. You know, he adopted me and my baby sister, and I forgive him. You know,
Right.
he's deceased now. You know, but in order for me to get to live in a place of peace, I
Mm.
had to let go and release, not just let go, but release
Yes.
the offenses that was there, and that's what God began to talk to me about. You know, He said the only way that you're going to get free from this is that you forgive this.
Mhm.
And because for years it was a hold on me, you know, even as an adult, I found myself uh, going through emotions and dealing with things all because I hadn't forgiven.
Right.
I remember having a heated conversation with my mom one day, you know, because part of me I blamed her, you know,
Right.
because I felt like she failed to protect us, you know, and not just me. I was blaming her for my brothers, you know,
Right.
because I felt like if my brothers would have been there, I wouldn't have went through what I went through. But who's to say if they would have survived, you know?
Right. Right.
And which my brother now, um, the only one that I have now, he'll
Mhm.
tell you he feel like she saved his life, and I respect that, you know.
Right.
I understand his viewpoint, you
Mm.
know, because he was like, if we would have stayed there, we would have been dead, you
You're right.
know. And I
So.
was like, you know, that's really interesting. That's a good way to look at it, you
Mhm.
know, especially if you want to keep your heart pure, you know,
Right.
from any offenses. And so it helped me to just look at, and God had to teach me, you know,
Mhm.
um, she had a life. You know, she went through
Right.
some stuff, you know.
Right.
And at that point, I didn't know, you know, I
Right.
didn't know because in my childlike mind and in my
Mhm.
childlike understanding,
Mhm.
all I saw was me. And
Right.
now that I'm an adult, I'm a woman, I see her
Mhm.
as a woman.
Right.
I see her as a person that have gone through some things,
Mhm.
somewhat like worse than what I've gone through to a
Right.
degree. And at the I didn't know that. You know,
Right.
I didn't know that. I didn't have a clue. Why? Because nobody taught.
Right.
And so as I grew up and began to have children, and you know that's something that I'm transparent about,
Mhm.
because I always wanted my y'all to be protected. And
Mhm.
that's why it was so hard for me when I was, you know, when I'm going through this Texas CPS system and
Right.
having to prove that I'm a good mom, but I was just a
Right.
kid even at that, you know. So um but you know, because I've always loved my kids and I've always fought to protect my kids to the best of my ability, and you know, and probably to a fault. You know, I believe
Mm.
I've been that what they call that Hoover hover mother,
Yes, I
a
have a
smother
mother.
mother. I've been a smother mother. You know, sometimes because I try so hard to keep y'all from
Mhm.
experience pain. You know
Right.
that sometimes I may have been overbearing,
Mhm.
because it's like, oh, now my mom, she's projecting fear now, you know,
Right.
or she's
Right.
projecting her experience now, you know. And while it can come from a good place, I
Mm.
still have to be careful with that because, you know, sometimes that can be hurtful. And so, I've learned a lot by the grace of God because it's God that have taught me everything I know,
Right. Mhm.
and He's shown me everything I've seen. He taught me how to love my mom, forgive
Mhm.
her, and understand her. One of the biggest things that He gave me was because my expectation of her was unrealistic,
Mhm.
and at the time as a child, I didn't know it was unrealistic.
Right.
But as I grew up at becoming an adult and understanding her life and the journey that she had,
Mhm.
my expectation was unrealistic. I wanted a mom that was whole, a
Mhm.
mom that made all the right choices, a mom that wasn't
Right.
wounded,
Right.
and a mom that that really could in my thought be perfect.
Right.
But
Like your best
when I
friend kind
look
of
back,
thing.
yeah, like my best friend, but not only that, but somebody that would have protected me, you know.
Right.
But now I understand that as being a mom, you can't always protect,
Right. Right.
and especially if you a victim too
Mhm.
because as I grew up in the house, I saw her go through, and she was a fighter. Now, don't get me wrong, because she wasn't no she ain't
Right.
she wasn't going down without a fight.
Right.
Because I saw the fights. I saw the swinging, I saw the breaking of the of
Now
the
we
the
know where the
dishes,
apple come
and
from.
yeah, we know where that fruit fell from, honey. We saw the fight. Hey, we saw
Right.
it, and so it wasn't like she, and yet it was domestic violence,
Right.
because nobody should have to live like that,
Right.
uh um nobody should just have to live like that. So as I became a woman and then a woman of God,
Mhm.
I began to understand life
Right.
and how life happens and how God would take everything that you've gone through and turn it for your good.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
a lot of times people have I mean, I counsel, I mentor. And so
Mhm.
when people are asking me like how can you say God is going to turn this for my good? And
Mhm.
when I tell you that was one of the questions I had, God, how are you going to turn this for my good? And now
Right.
I look at our world today and how abused we are, you got 2 out of 5 men that have been sexually assaulted. You have
Mhm.
1 out of 4 women that have been sexually assaulted. People are wounded and they don't know how to overcome things.
Right.
They you have those suppressors that go into depression and then they find themselves suicidal, and feeling like they're alone. And when I begin to look at it, and I was like, oh yeah, God, you're gonna get the glory out of this because I'm gonna make the devil
Right.
mad with this
Right.
because everything that I suffer, guess what? I'm coming for you. I'm coming
Right.
for you. I'm looking
Right.
for those women. I'm looking for those men
Mhm.
that have been hurt that way because I can teach as an experienced person, as a person that's been healed. I'm
Right.
that one that can say, oh, yeah, you can overcome that and it ain't got to keep overcoming you. You don't have
Right.
to keep going to bed at night and reliving and rehearsing
Right.
that thing that happened to you. You don't have to be, look, because me, you remember me, I didn't even like men teachers because in the school system,
Right.
remember? Because I was
Right.
like, wait,
Yes.
hold on, what's up with y'all?
Yes.
What's wrong with y'all? What?
I think
I had some.
yeah, I think my first male teacher was Mr. Mays, and that was the only one you approved of, honey. That was it.
Yes, 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 and you can tell, and you can best believe I had my eyes on him too,
Yes, right.
and he stayed in contact. I mean, he was
Right.
he was
He
very
did.
respectful, and he was
Mhm.
like, hey, you know, Tony this, Tony that, and I was like, okay, I think we're gonna be okay. I think
Okay,
you cool
right.
right now.
You're right.
and then when your little sister went to school and she had a couple of them, and I was like, wait a minute now, what is wrong with these men
Like
want to be? But that was my insecurities and that was my
right,
fear.
right.
And God began to show me that you can't put every man
Hmm.
in the same box or in the same
Right,
boat because you had an experience.
right,
And that's something that is so easy for us to do because all I know is what I've experienced.
right,
And I've not had a good experience with a male figure at that point in my life.
right,
And because even the boys that I called myself liking in school, they was abusive because I that's how I ended up gang raped. And pregnant and don't know who the daddy is, because
right.
And it wasn't him, the guy that I was
Right.
calling myself dating, but it was other boys that were and back then I don't know what they call it now, but back then they call it the train.
Yeah, they call it
and
still call it a train.
and it they probably okay, and it was humiliating,
Right.
and it was something that you don't and 9 times out of 10 the boys are running their mouth, but you as a
Right.
female, you
Right.
want to go somewhere and hide,
And
you want to
right.
go somewhere and kill yourself. And
Right.
then to find out that I was pregnant, that was a whole nother thing, and I couldn't tell
Right.
that. I first of all
Right.
I couldn't tell I was skipping school. Okay, that's how the
Right.
devil do you. He get you over there on his territory, then he binds you up.
Hmm.
And so
Right.
I'm thinking I can't tell because I was skipping school. So now I got an answer to that.
Right.
And so next thing you know, I'm in this web, and the guy that I call myself um going with at that time, he was like, I'll be the daddy. And by then I was so bitter and mad. You know what,
Right.
dude? Bye.
It's going on.
And
Right.
and then we started going through that whole thing with CPS, and then they took the DNA from him and found out, no, you ain't the daddy. Well, who the daddy? Well, mind you,
Right.
I never told nobody that I had been gang raped until
Right.
I actually started my radio broadcast. Well, I had told my husband, but
Right.
I
Right.
that so it's yeah, it was an interesting walk, but to God be the glory.
Right.
I'm healed, and I'm allowing God to heal others through my life. I cry with you, you know. I'll
Hmm.
even get mad for you, you know.
Yes,
And
you will.
why because you're going through those emotions. You're going through
Right.
them, and you have to let
Right.
that process go. You got to go through that process. You have to
Right.
go through those emotions, and until you get to the point where you're ready to say, okay, I'm tired. I'm through crying.
Right.
I'm through being angry. I'm through letting this have dominion over me, because the Word of
Right.
God teaches us we can't let this stuff have dominion over us. It controls us.
Right.
And so
So
that's
after,
that.
right. Okay, so
Mhm.
after, like, and then you touched on a couple of times, being gang raped and going through that whole process with CPS. Like before, in going into the gang rape, like, was it something that was settled, or like was it like you were just randomly somewhere and you hanging out and they just decided, just being boys,
Uh,
wilding
uh,
out?
yeah, well, actually, the plan was what the plan was, with my devilish self at that time, with my little fast self at that time, my rebellious self at that time.
So many
Me and the
labels.
guy, me and the guy that I would call myself going with, and I say call myself going with because I
Hmm.
was young,
Right,
and
right.
I was like 13, 14. And
Mm,
so we called ourselves going together, and so he and I was skipping school together, and he had a friend's house that we was gonna go to,
mhm,
and I had already been exposed to so much. So
mhm.
fortunately for me, sex was just sex,
Right, right,
and that's even sad to say, at the
right,
age of 13, because I'd already done been tampered with, touched,
right,
and
right,
so it's like, hey, and so anyway, it didn't mean anything.
right,
And so, nevertheless, so we were skipping school, and that was the plan. Well, while in action, shall I say,
right.
these guys come in and push him off, and no, it wasn't. No, he didn't even know
Oh, wow.
what was going to happen. He didn't have
Right,
a clue. They locked him out of the house, and he was fighting the whole time to try to get in. And
right,
we're a bunch of
right,
kids
right,
just doing dumb stuff, and if
right.
that was to happen today, to one of my kids, I'm gonna lock some. I'm gonna tell
You
you right
heard
now,
me?
somebody going to jail. Do you hear me?
You said
Somebody
jail and
is
the
going
ambulance.
to jail if the police get there first.
Right,
I never wanted my kids to be in a position whereby no matter what they did, they couldn't tell me, even though I'm
right.
sure they've been there,
Hmm.
because again, I had my Hoover, what they say, smother mother
Oh,
experiences.
smother mother.
And
Hmm.
so but anyway, I never ever wanted to think that my child would have suffered something like that
Right,
and could not tell me, because they feared me more than they needed to,
Right.
because sometimes we as parents we do put our fear in the kids, and
Mhm.
but that's not the kind of fear that you want your kid to have, to where they can't come
Right.
and tell you what's going on. Even if I was wrong, skipping
Right.
school, that was big enough for me to be able to go home and say, "Hey, I went through this today," you
Right.
know, and feel like I could have been protected because, but that wasn't that case.
Right. Right. So now that you have gone through this whole journey, BC, before Christ,
Mhm.
so that journey of coming to Christ after that last scenario of, you know what, I'm tired. I don't want to do this no more. Like I need something else. Like this can't be it. Like there has to be something else better than this. So in that, where were you in? How old were you when you finally hit that mark of saying something has to give?
I was 19.
Hmm.
By the time I was 19, I tried suicide. I tried, you name it. I had done lived on the streets. I had done been on at the Salvation Army. I had been at, I just, I was done. And I remember calling my aunt, and I don't even know how I ended up getting in contact with her. But anyway, I know I ended up talking to her, and I was just telling her stuff, and she just told me, she said, you need to call. She said, I want you to call Mother Neal, she'll pray with you.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was like, child, I don't know. And that's when she was like, little prayer don't hurt nobody, just call her, she'll
Right.
pray with you. And so I didn't know at that time that she had been talking to her about me.
Mm.
Um
Oh, wow.
and so um and so I called her. I called her, and I said, I told her who I was, and she was say, "Yeah, how are you?" And she, you remember how she
Yeah,
was,
sound like Manny.
and yeah, and she, was very like I mean, it was her voice alone was comforting. And
Hmm.
so, anyway, she, we began to talk, and she said, "How you doing?" Your aunt, shared some things, so she didn't come off like she didn't know.
Right.
She
Right.
did, and so and she said, "Well, I'm gonna pray with you." And so when she prayed with me, and when I tell you prayed, baby, no man. When
No,
I tell
and
you
nobody can touch
that's
that
some
one. I'm sorry.
honey, when I tell you pray, because I in that life that I was in, I
Right. Hmm.
never heard nobody pray like she prayed.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because she had contact, she had a connection,
Hmm.
and when she prayed for me, she prayed things that I didn't say to her or my aunt said to her.
Wow.
It was like the things that she was praying in that moment.
Hmm.
I was in that moment because I hadn't told my aunt I tried to kill myself. I hadn't told my aunt, matter of fact, they didn't even know I had been raped. They didn't
Right.
even know that. All they knew was that I had lost my son to CPS,
Hmm.
and I was literally homeless,
Right.
because after I lost him, I wasn't going back
Right.
to where I was. And so then I became a runner. But anyway, she prayed. She prayed for me, and she was blessed with the spirit of prophecy, and God
Hmm.
began to use her to speak to me.
Hmm.
And at that time, I had never heard prophecy, didn't know nothing about prophecy.
Right.
Um, but it was all on point.
Mm.
And so she said, God is going to do something for you. She said, and I mean, God is going to do something for you. And she just began to minister to me, letting me know that how much God loved me, and how that He wanted to use my life. He wanted to make all the bad good. He wanted to
Mhm.
get the glory out of it. And I'm just like, I couldn't see it, but my heart
Right.
and my spirit was so open that I heard it.
Mhm.
I heard it, and it gave me hope where I didn't have it, and gave me a strength that I didn't have. And
Right.
so and I remember that was the first time, and I didn't get in contact with her for a while.
Mhm.
And then a little bit, I probably maybe about 3 or 4 months later, I called her again, and I'm gonna tell you when I called her that time, that's when the walls fell. I mean, that's when the Jericho walls fell. That's when he came in and began to do a number on me, and she began to
Mhm.
tell me how that he was going to use me with others. And by that time,
Mhm.
I was living with a guy. We was living together. We was and I began to just God just really began to draw me. And even at that time, God began to deal with me in dreams and visions. I began to see things,
Mhm.
and I would tell it. I would tell my friends and the guy that I was going with at that time. I would tell them the
Mhm.
things that I saw, and the things would come to pass just like I saw them.
Wow.
And so they were like, I don't want to hear no more. Don't tell me no more about your
Right.
dreams.
No, that's
They didn't
for
want to
real.
hear it. And but it was like I saw I didn't know what I was seeing, but apparently they
Right.
knew.
Right.
And so anyway, the things that I saw was coming to pass. So finally I got to the point where I was like I didn't want to shack no more.
Mhm.
I was ready to just give God my all. I wanted to be a good mom to my kids that
Mhm.
I had already went through almost losing you and your brother to CPS,
Mhm.
and I was like,
Right.
no, God, I can't handle that again.
Right.
And I was like, I can't, and I couldn't, and I think I don't know what would have happened if that would have happened, but anyway,
Right. Thank God.
so God,
Hallelujah.
amen, amen, amen. And so I made up my mind. I said, God, I want to live saved. And then I began to pray. I said, God, if this is not my husband,
Mhm.
move him because I
Mhm.
didn't want to live like that.
Right.
And it was about three days later, uh, Dallas PD picked him up, and
Not
he was
Dallas
gone for
PD.
about Dallas PD picked him up,
Mm-mm.
and
One way to remove
he ended up
somebody.
getting like about 5 years, and I was like,
Mhm.
wow, Lord, okay,
Right.
you made your statement, and
You
so
did.
and I was still calling Mother Neal. She would pray with me every night.
Mhm.
I remember I needed a job. I was like I can't because he was gone, and
Right.
so I was about to get evicted, and Spirit of God used her, and so God said that He was gonna work it out.
Mm.
And when I tell you He worked it out, He gave me a job down the street, from the apartments that I lived in, touched the
Mhm.
apartment manager's heart, worked out the payments and everything. When I tell you everything worked out, everything worked out. He blessed me with a good friend that used to watch y'all while I
Mhm.
worked, and I would watch her kids while she worked.
Mhm.
And so, but then it got to the point where, and I was winning. When I tell you I was winning, I was winning. I was winning souls to Christ. I was having prayer meetings at the house over the phone. My
Wow.
friends were getting blessed, and I was 19. I was
Wow.
19,
On
and
fire.
on fire. When I tell you God did it, He did it. And so, and back then we didn't have cell phones.
Right.
We didn't have unlimited long distance, so my phone got cut off because I would call her all the
Right.
time. And she would always tell me, she's like, you don't have to call me every night,
Right.
and I don't want your phone bill to be up. And I was like, oh, this is my lifeline.
Right.
I
Right.
needed that lifeline. And so anyway, and because at that point I was a babe in Christ, and I didn't really know the voice of God like that. I was learning, but I
Mhm.
didn't know it. And
Right.
but God was blessing me. And so anyway, when my phone got turned off, I didn't find a church home in Dallas, so it was kind of hard.
Mhm.
Um, but about I remember the last time that I talked to her, she told me, she said, I don't know how or when, she said, but I see God bringing you to Arkansas. She said, God gonna
Wow.
bring, she said, I see you coming to Newport. And I was like, what? I don't know
Huh?
nobody in Newport.
Right.
And and I didn't know that my dad was there. And
Mm.
so I have seen God piece my life together. I have seen God. When I tell you what, we always say it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Right. Right.
And when I tell you my life started sure enough ratchet and raggedy, but when I see God, what He have done in my life and through my life now,
Right.
the love that I have for those that wrong me, I'm
Mhm.
good.
Right.
My kids, when I tell you God taught me how to be a mother, and not
Mhm.
saying I got it all right, but when I tell you He taught me some stuff, He
Right.
taught me. And that was the first prayer that He gave me when He actually got me real good and saved. I was like, God, teach me how to be a mother, because
Right.
I don't want my kids going through what I went through. Give me
Right.
discernment so that way I ain't hooking up with people that
Right.
don't mean me no good, that's gonna abuse
Right.
my kids. God
Right.
save me. And so, and then He spoke in how that He was gonna bless my life, how who He had for me was gonna be good for me, and He was gonna be good for my kids. And
Mhm.
and when I tell you he's probably better to them than I am to them.
Yes,
uh
he is, Lord.
you know,
Yes, he is. That's my daddy, y'all.
because he, when I tell you, he loved hard.
Yeah.
And he warded me off of them a few
Yes, he did.
times,
Hallelujah.
and and still do. What's
It
so
still
crazy
do.
about it? Still do, and they grown,
You're
and the
right.
grandkids too.
Yeah.
Grandkids too. He do
Mhm.
like he like where, and so and can't nobody put your life together like God
Right.
can. You
Mhm.
know, can't nobody. You
Nobody.
gonna mess it up
All the way.
every single
Time.
time, and that's why I tell people, don't be in a hurry.
Mhm.
Wait on God,
Yes.
because the it's gonna be worth it. When I tell you it's gonna be worth the, it is worth the wait.
Mhm.
When I look at how I miss my dad, my real dad, my biological dad,
Yeah. How did that journey
going
go of you? Yeah, I was gonna tell you. How did that journey go of you meeting your real dad?
the, my auntie, okay. I called her one I called her one day, and I asked her what was, because I we never talked about my dad. I
Right.
never knew my dad's name, nothing. I know
Mhm.
nothing about my dad. And so my um stepdad adopted me when I was in the 6th grade,
Mhm.
and so changed my name. And so
Right.
but when I was going through those processes, I remember asking my auntie, what's his name? What's my daddy's name? And she
Right.
told me. She told me his nickname too. And
Mhm.
I said, really? I
Three.
said, so where he from?
Right.
I said, where he from? And she said, he from Newport. And I was like, really?
Mm. Did
Wow.
you know that
And
before
mind
or
you,
after after Nanny
No,
told you?
after that was
Oh
after Nanny
Lord.
told me,
Okay.
because I remember I said, why would I go to Newport? I don't know
Right.
nobody in
Right.
Newport.
Right.
And so it was just, I asked. I don't know. I mean, it had to be God to even get me to ask her, because I didn't know that she knew. And so
Right.
and she told me, she told me his name. And so I was like, okay. So I remember going to work that night, because I ain't had no phone, right? So I went to work that night, and I called information from work,
Mhm.
and I asked for, I got his phone number, and it
Mhm.
was listed. And so I held on to that phone number for about a good probably 2 or 3 weeks,
Mhm.
because I just didn't know. I didn't
Right.
know what to expect.
Right.
And so I remember one particular night I said, one day, because I was working day shift. I was like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
call him. I'm just gonna call him. And so
Right.
I called him, and when I called him, I asked for his nickname,
Mhm.
because I wanted to make sure I had the right person.
Right. Right. Right.
And so when I asked, my sister actually answered the phone, and
Mhm.
Clara, she answered the
Mhm.
phone, and I asked for Sonny, and she got real quiet, because they don't call him that now. They
Right.
don't call him
Right.
that. So she said she knew later on, after we met and everything. She was like, I knew it was somebody from the past, because nobody calls him that now.
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, and so he was at work. So every time I would call him, he would be at work, because he worked during the
Right.
day. And she was giving him the messages. She was giving him the
Wow.
message, and so finally I called him one night,
Mhm.
and and I remember out after that he got on the phone when I asked for him. When I tell you, shaking like a leaf,
I
when I
bet.
tell you nervous, honey, I didn't have the Holy Ghost, but I know I probably having some stammering tongues going on, honey, because I was a
Right.
nervous wreck. And and so when he got on the phone, I said, "Hi, I'm Suzanne," and told him my name, and he's like, "Okay." And I said, "My mom said you're my dad." And he said, "Yeah,
Oh, you
yeah,
just gave it to him. You just
I did.
just
I
laid
didn't know
it
what to
on him.
say. We gonna clear this up now. We ain't gonna talk about nothing else. I just need to
Right.
know." and 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 I did. And he said, "Yeah, yeah, I'm your dad." And it was like a holy hush for at least. It felt like about
Right.
5 minutes, but I know it wasn't. It just
Right.
felt like that. And he began to just ask me, just kind of like asking, get to know you type of questions.
Hmm.
He's like, so, how you doing? Where you at? And
Right.
what's going on with you, and and stuff like that. So we talked a couple of times, and I remember telling him that I was going to come down to visit Easter Sunday.
Right.
And he was like, okay, Good Friday. That's what I said. Good Friday
Hmm.
would be that way. Good Friday. I was gonna bring me and the kids would be down Good Friday, and he was excited, right?
Hmm.
And I didn't tell him. I told him when I was coming, but I didn't go when I said I was going. I
Oh
ended up going
no.
so. Yeah, I ended up going sooner,
Oh.
and the reason because I had my vacation, and so I
Right.
was like, we gonna go on and go. And I was at that point in my life, I had to do something.
Yes.
When I tell you, I had to do something because I was sick of me,
Right.
and but at the time I didn't know where that was gonna lead me.
Right.
And so I remember driving. I had never took a road trip before, so I packed up bologna sandwiches and all these chips and everything. Thought you would have thought we'd been going a long way, but it was six
Right.
hour drive. But honey, when I tell you, we were ready, and I had never drove that long distance by myself.
Right.
But anyway, didn't have GPS.
Oh
All
Lord.
I had was an address. So back in the day, that's where you stop and ask people, "Hey,
I know
how
that's
I get to
right.
Newport?" I knew because once I got to Little Rock, I knew,
Right.
because that I got lost because I knew Arkansas, but once I got to Little Rock, I was like, "What in the world am I going?"
Right.
And I couldn't call nobody because we didn't have cell phones. And
Right.
so I stopped at a gas station and asked somebody where was Newport, and they told me which highway to take, and said just keep going until you get to the end of the highway, because it was at
Hmm.
the end of the highway. Now they've added more highway, but
Right.
it was the end of the highway. And so I went, and I remember I pulled up at the Exxon there, and I went in and I got to the payphone and I called him, and
Hmm.
I told him that we were there, and it was probably about almost 10 o'clock at night.
Oh my.
And yeah, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and we just kind of popped up there on them.
Right.
and
Right.
so when we got there, so my sister, she was working at the hospital, so she came and met us because she was just getting off.
Right.
And so we met at the Exxon gas station, and I trailed her out to the country. Oh my God,
Girl.
you already know it's so
I
dark.
love it. There's no
And look,
lights.
and Suzanne didn't know nothing about that. I was from the Dallas area, honey, and it was lights
Where?
everywhere. Ooh, I was
Right.
like, what in the world is this, and where we going?
Right.
But God, it was
Hmm.
God the whole time. It was God, and I appreciate Him. I
Hmm.
appreciate God. I appreciate God for even that, because after that you have gone through
Hmm.
abuse and you've gone through the things that I went through as a child, needing a dad, wanting a dad, and
Hmm.
then all of a sudden this man is like, yeah, you're my daughter, and it wasn't no rejection, no drawback, no
Right.
question about it, and it that healed me in so many areas.
Right.
And then, so when I been pulling up to the driveway, and they all was outside, waiting on us to come, little Renard, your uncle,
Hmm.
and they just, you could tell people's like, is she ours? Is she, and
Right.
me, I'm like, am I yours?
No, for real. Like,
Am I yours?
right.
But I was his because he said I was,
Right.
and
Right.
30 years later he ain't took it back,
Wow.
and if when I tell you, that I always tell people,
Yeah.
and I think I posted something about, around his birthday. I said, he's the first man I saw really being a man.
Right.
And and unfortunately I had to be 21 years old to
Right.
see that. And it's interesting because when I got there, open arms. They were excited for us to be there. My brother gave up his room for us, and it was such an experience that I didn't want to leave.
Right.
And so I remember, also I remembered Mother Neal, and I was like,
Mhm.
she said I was going to come to Newport. Where is
Right.
she at? How can I
Right.
find her?
Right.
And so now I'm on the hunt looking for this lady. And so so I go to the my sister worked at the hospital, and I asked the receptionist, "Do you know this lady?" And she was like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
I know her." And I was like, "I asked my sister, but she said she don't know her." She said, "Oh, I'll make her know her. She'll know her." Now mind you, Newport, everybody know everybody.
Everybody
And
know
so
everybody.
it just yeah, but it just so happened it was two people with that name there.
Mm.
And so she was like, "Oh, I'll make her remember her." And I was like, "Okay." And she did. And she said, "Oh." So the next day, um, I drove up. I went over there. Met her, and it was definitely an experience. And I remember we sat down and talked. And she said, "So how's it going with your dad?" And I was like, "It's good." I said, "I really don't want, I really don't want to leave because I felt home.
Right.
I felt protected. I felt supported, something I had never experienced, in my life.
Right.
And I felt safe. I felt like you all was in a safe place,
Right.
and it was a slower town.
Mhm.
I wasn't driven. I wasn't clubbing. Well, yeah, I did do a
Right.
little clubbing, but not like I was
Right.
in Dallas.
Right.
And
Right.
so, so it just slowed me down and
Right.
put me in a different space. And
Mhm.
so, then here I am being reintroduced to Christ, and
Right.
going to church, and having that full transformation experience, and meeting my husband. It's like my life just God just brought it together, and it was amazing because the ministries that I was a part of,
Mhm.
how they ministered to me.
Right.
Even Pastor Ernie Childress,
Mhm.
he passed now, but I
Right.
remember him calling me out. It was like, God sees your concern about John. He was saying he was in between John and Jonathan because I named your brother Jonathan,
Right.
and
Right.
so so he was like, God sees your concern, and again, I had never been exposed to the gift of knowledge,
Right.
and so when he spoke that, it about took me out because
Wow.
people didn't know how every November 7th I was going through a
Right.
major depression,
Right.
and how I just, even though I had you and Tony, you and Dwayne, I was
Right.
always missing that one,
Right.
and me missing that one kept me in a dark place. God
Right.
was with me. He was there. He kept me, but there was always those moments that I would go into that depression. His birthday,
Right.
just certain things would happen. I would have dreams about him, and
Mhm.
and I was just going through.
Right.
And so it was just I got so much to tell you. How much
No,
time you got on this thing? Because
I got you. I'm good. I'm ready. I can break it down into
you
times.
know so so it's just amazing. So living there took me to a place of meet well, first of all, meeting my dad, going back to that part, meeting
Mhm.
my dad. And I remember we would take long, just me and I would just share I had went through, and seeing his response, in my and your grandpa, he's a cool dude. He kind of
He's a
hold himself
cool
together,
papa too.
and
Mhm.
and just seeing his caring,
Right.
and just seeing him learning me and being patient with me because I wasn't that easy to
Mhm.
deal with when I first, because I was going through some emotional trauma,
Right.
and
Right.
I wanted to be grown, but then at the same time, there was a little girl in me that needed that dad
Right.
to raise me,
Right.
and
Mhm.
he knew that, and he was patient with that. It was a few times he was ready to get to me though, but but he got, he understood that
Right.
um I had a life before him, you know
Right.
and it
So
was
to
it was
have Papa and Mimi, like, how
mhm
did it feel to have another woman come into your life, step into a place where that particular part of your life was damaged at that point?
Mm. I always tell people God has a way of putting people in your life when you need them
Mm-hmm.
most.
Right.
And I didn't know how to be a mother because mind you, I was living on the streets. I was
Right.
doing what I was doing, and and I was, just wasn't settled at all.
Right.
And in survival mode. And
Right.
so when she popped up,
Mm-hmm.
I never, I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing because when I tell you, when God do it, God does it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember when I asked the question if I could stay, I expected, some drawback or reservation, but it was like all
Right.
open heart. And
Wow.
but I remember when we the first night we stayed there. The next day, she took off from work. We
Mm-hmm.
went shop. She took us shopping. I mean, it was, when I tell you, she stepped up into a place that I needed her to be, and it wasn't even just for the natural. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
It was she had a caring
Mm-hmm.
spirit about herself that I had
Right.
never felt.
Right.
And she embraced us. She embraced you. She embraced Dwayne. She embraced us,
Mm-hmm.
and she was gonna be mama. And I remember
Right.
y'all wasn't even calling me mama at that time. Y'all was
Right.
calling me
I'm
Suzanne.
Miss Suzanne.
She about came
I do
unglued.
remember
She
that.
said,
I remember
"What
that.
they calling you that?" And I mean, she began to teach me how to mother. She began
Mm-hmm.
to teach me how to. Uh, and I'm talking about stuff that I should have knew. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But I didn't know, or I wasn't cognizant of it once I got there, because I
Right.
think when I first got there with them, when we first moved there, I think a
Mm-hmm.
part of me, what I like to say, reverted to a little
Right.
girl,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt that father, I felt that mother, that
Mm-hmm.
was there, that was willing to do stuff that
Right.
nobody ever done.
Right.
And so I had to grow back up, because I mean, she was like, she would get y'all baths, she would comb your hair. I mean, she was
We
like
ain't gonna talk about the
doing it.
coming of
She
that action
Yeah, that hot comb. I mean, she
every
would dress
Sunday.
y'all from head to toe. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she made sure that y'all were groomed, and it was almost like I needed that for that moment,
Right.
because I needed to see it done.
Right.
And because I had not seen it done, I was doing it, but I was doing it the only way that I knew how.
Right. Right.
And so when she did it,
Mm-hmm.
she showed me how it's supposed to be done.
Right. Right.
She showed me how, to really take pride in my kids,
Right.
how to dress them, how to clean them, how to talk to them, how to mother them,
Right.
and she would tell me times, be patient, with them.
Mm-hmm.
You can't whoop them for everything. And I was like, that's all I know.
Right. Right.
And so, it was just things like that she did, and and so it wasn't. There was never a time, young people today, they can be like, yeah, hey, my mama. I
Right.
never felt that from. I never felt that emotion from me, coming from her, because I really appreciated what they did. And I knew that wasn't no easy task, because
Right.
my daddy got sisters. My
Right.
daddy got brothers. His
Right.
brothers was cool, but them sisters, they was like, what
Down the
y'all do?
house.
What? Huh? And at that time, of course, I never knew it, because my dad covered that, and
Right.
even my mom, my bonus mom, she covered
Mm-hmm.
that. Matter of fact,
Right.
we just now starting to talk about grown up stuff, and
Right.
talk about the things that she, kind of endured when I came in. I told her, I said, I already know, because I'm a woman today. I know you went
Right.
through some stuff,
Right.
you know. So it was a blessing. I mean, it was a blessing. It was a blessing, right when I needed it. And
Amen. God definitely
yeah,
knows how to put you in that position when you need it, how you need it,
he
where
do.
you need it, and on time.
Mhm.
And definitely
Mhm.
on
On
time.
time. On
So
time.
I know you didn't point this out, but we know when you met Mother Neal, her
Mhm.
husband, which is my daddy, is Mother Neal's son. So,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
so
Yes.
how did that even transition? So you meet Mother Neal, and you like, Oh my God, it's so good
end
to
up
meet you, and all
married
that.
to her son.
End up married to a son. Like, how did it even happen? Like, how do you just do that?
That was interesting. Because I remember when I okay, so remember I said I went to the hospital to find out
Hmm.
where she lived, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so when I went over to her house and knocked on the door, he answered the door.
Mm.
And me, I was like, okay, but I'm gonna get out from over here.
Right.
So,
Because you already
cause
knew
I
who
don't
you
know what
was.
this, I don't know
Right.
what this is right here.
Right. Right.
And cause he was creased,
It still is, y'all. Still
he
is,
still
child.
is, yeah, he
Still.
still is. And so and she wasn't there, so I knocked
Right.
on the door and he answered, and
Hmm.
uh and she wasn't there, so I left. And I mean, of course, I didn't think nothing of it at that time.
Right.
And so, eventually, as I began to draw closer to her, he also, being a minister,
Hmm.
was in the Bible study settings and the prayer meetings,
Hmm.
and was ministering to me. And so we just kind of started growing together, and we just began to, it was like we were so compatible, you know.
Hmm.
And I remember asking God one time. I said, Lord, I said, I said, I want a man of God. That's what I want to. I just began to pray, God, I want a man of God. And
Right.
he was showing me, my husband today, not my
Hmm.
husband then,
Right.
was showing me what that was, what that looked like. And
Right.
so God began to give me, surround me with others that were saved, that was walking with him, that had those callings.
Hmm.
And so we just began to do ministry together. We witness
Hmm.
together, we travel, evangelize together, and we would grow together. And so I remember being in service one night, and one of the pastors, no, well, no, he was an evangelist.
Hmm.
He called me up, and he told me, he said, he said, I see a man standing next to you, and he said, God gonna make you happy. And
Mm.
I was like, okay. He said, okay, and I was like, all right, I'm good with that. And I didn't know
Right.
who it was at that time. Even though we were good friends, we were good ministry conduits.
Right.
I didn't. It wasn't. We weren't there yet.
Right.
And so anyway, then I went to service one night, and Pastor Childress called me out, and he was like, somebody's thinking
Mm-hmm.
about asking you to marry them, and when they do, you let me know.
Mm-mm.
And I
Mm-mm.
was like, huh? I was like,
Right?
who? And in
I ain't
my
around
flesh,
nobody.
I was like, I don't know, that don't mean it's God. Me, I'm not
Right.
sassy. I don't know. I don't mean it's God just because I'm single and saved. I'm single,
Right.
saved, and satisfied.
Right.
And so anyway, I remember going back to Mother Neal's house because she wrote the church with me, so I took her home.
Hmm.
And so we went in the house, and I began to share with him what Brennan had said.
Hmm.
And you should have seen the look on
I
his
can
face, girl.
imagine.
Honey, he got up and he walked to the back of the house and didn't come back to the front. And I was like, well,
Mm-mm.
okay, I don't, and I still didn't have a clue. I still didn't have a clue.
Wow.
And so I was like, huh, all right, well, good night. So
Right.
I went on home. And so I think it may have been about a week later,
Hmm.
where he actually brought it back up again and was like, okay, so if that was me, if that was
Right.
me, I'm
Mm-mm, not
like,
if.
are you asking what is
Right.
this? And so it just kind of flourished from there.
Hmm.
And then from there, oh my God, everywhere we would go, uh somebody was calling him out or calling me out, and was, Play-Doh wedding march, I see you getting
Right.
married, and it was like, it was just confirmation after confirmation.
Right.
And yet at the same time we were having our challenges too.
Right.
And
Right.
so but it was interest it was I wouldn't have never thought. I definitely wouldn't have never thought. I wouldn't have never thought that was gonna be, moving to Newport, and
Right.
God just turning my life, not upside down, but right side up.
A whole
because it was
180.
already up. It was already upside down,
Right,
but he
right.
just turned it right side up.
Yeah, turning from a
Yeah.
city girl to a whole country girl, because Newport is where the
Uh-huh.
dirt meet the gravel. Honey, ain't nothing there.
Uh, and like, look, and you know it had to be God because I liked
Yeah,
it.
right.
And I stayed there and was contented. So you know it
Mm,
had to be God because that's
mm,
not that place where
what?
usually people leave
Right,
Newport and go to the
right.
city, not leave the city and go to
And go to
Newport.
Newport.
But God knew what I needed. I probably would
Mm,
have been dead somewhere if I would have stayed,
right.
where I was.
Sounds
Yeah.
about right. Cause Dallas got that. Back then, I'm sure it was probably a little bit more intense than it is now. That's for sure.
Oh,
That's.
absolutely, because I was running. I remember when I before I just totally gave all up to God.
Mm,
I came back to Dallas to and I was gonna go clubbing one night, and and I called my friend, and I was like, "Hey, I'm in town," and she was like, "Hey, girl, we finna go out," and I was like, "Oh, for real? Okay, I'm
mm.
right on time. Let me call my mama see if she gonna keep the kids." And so, and which she never did, but that
Right.
night she did. She said she
Wow.
would anyway that night, and
Right.
so I dropped them off at the club, and they was like, "You gonna come back?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm coming back. I gotta take my kids off." And so I'm on my way home, on my way to my mom. She lived over in Pleasant Grove at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember we were. It was dark when we got in. I had my suitcases, and we going in green, don't know,
Yeah.
blind as it
Mm.
was, blind, just blind walking. And so I got my suitcases. I got you and your brother, and we going up the stairs, and I hear these footsteps coming up behind me. And by the time I look over the balcony,
Mm.
because she lived upstairs, by the time I look over the balcony, I see this young man pulling his stocking cap over his face. And so he's running up behind me, and he robs me. I'm beating on my mom's door trying to
Oh,
get in, and
wow.
he robs me. And it was like everything just started going in slow motion. And
Right.
while it was happening, I could literally, like, I seen a vision of a picture of me, you, your brother on back then it was Dallas Times Herald. Now
Mm.
they don't have that. They have the
Right.
morning news. Well, they had them both, but they apparently Times Herald just went out. But anyway, and I could literally see our picture on the cover of the newspaper, like an obituary,
Wow.
and just that fast. And so after that he robbed me, he ran back downstairs, had my purse, everything, ran back downstairs, and your granny finally opened the door, and she's like, "Why you beating on this door like you crazy?" I'm like, "I just got robbed."
Okay, I'm telling
And
you.
I just got robbed. I'm beating on the door because I need you to open the door. So,
Right.
which it was probably the grace of God that she didn't, because it could have went any kind of way from
Yeah.
there.
Right.
So anyway, so going in the house, I don't know how my friends got home from the club because Suzanne got
Mm.
in their house, set
Right.
herself down that weekend,
Mm.
and it was just so happened that I had left money home back with my dad, and
Mm-hmm.
so I called him and told him wire me the money because we ain't had cash out.
Right.
And so I said,
Right.
wire me the money. And so he was like fussing at me. He was like, every
Right.
time you go to Dallas, something happened.
Mm.
And I had a wreck. I had wrecked my car when I came back to Dallas. I was still on the run. I was a fish, on the hook, but I was still kind of flopping a little bit.
Flopping around.
And so I was flopping, and I was still trying to get that last feel, that last fleshy
Right.
satisfaction. And so here it is. I had done wrecked my car coming to Dallas one time, and then I got robbed. And
Mm.
so that last time that I got robbed, he was like, you know what? He said, my dad, he was like, every time you go, while you ripping and running up and down this highway, every time you go, something happened. And it
Right.
was the truth.
Right.
And but that time, honey, when I tell you God shook me real good, and I said, God, you get me back home.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you won't have to worry about me again. I know where to go. And I told God this. I said, Lord, I just want my driver's license
Right.
because I didn't want to drive all the way back to
Right.
Arkansas without him. And so I was leaving that Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
My dad wired me the money Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So Sunday morning before I left, the police knocked on the door.
Mm.
And he handed me my purse. He said, we found your purse. He said, ain't
Right.
no money in it. He said,
Wow.
but it looks like your driver's license and everything else is
Wow.
still intact. And when I mean, I was like, wow, Lord. When I tell you, that's why I tell people, no, you don't come too late. Try to tell me about God, because
Right.
when I tell you that right there, I was like, Lord, I'm not I'm going. I'm
Right.
good. I'm gonna obey you. And it's funny because when I got home, nobody believed that I had got robbed because I still had my purse and my ID.
Right.
And daddy did was like, you ain't what you do, go up there and blow your money and needed me to send you some money
Right.
to get back. And I was like, no, I really did get robbed. And it was hard to prove it, but God and I know, my mama
Right.
know I got
Right.
robbed.
Right.
And so but from that point on, honey, God didn't have no trouble out of me. I got myself back to Newport, Arkansas, hooked up with Mother Neal and the Saints, and I've been running ever since because I was like, I'm not fit to die out here like this.
Right.
Because the vision itself was so real to me.
Mm.
And at that moment, I'm seeing not just me, but I'm seeing y'all, you
Right.
know. I'm like, we all finna be wiped off this earth,
Right. Right.
and and at that time I didn't know nothing about legacy, but today I know about legacy,
Right.
and I was like, boy, the devil want to wipe out legacy, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but God saved me. Praise
Amen.
God.
Hallelujah. Because we wouldn't be here
Bless his
today.
name. Y'all wouldn't be here, honey. If I wouldn't have had that moment of clarity, you better
Hmm.
sit down because you are on the broad way of destruction and you are on
Right.
your way fast.
Hmm.
And he didn't have no trouble after that, honey. I got my little self down there and got myself together because I was like, Lord, okay.
Right.
And then we look one night in the club down there, still acting wild, acting up. This was before this, because that was the robbery is what settled me.
Right.
But before the robbery, me walking all up to that and me running from God,
Hmm.
because it was so amazing to me at that point because I could literally feel the hand of God up on me. I
Wow.
felt the hand of God so heavy on me. I would tell God, I would have conversations with Him. I'd be like, Lord, just let me go do this right quick, and
Hmm.
then I'll be ready. I'm
Right.
trying to make a deal with Him because His
Right.
presence is so heavy on me. And
Right.
so this one particular night, I went to the club with a guy that I was dating, and
Mm.
back home in Newport, and I never stayed till the club was over, till the club closed because
Right.
that's when the fights break out, right? That's when
Right.
the people
Right.
got that devil juice in them. They go act
Right.
crazy.
Right.
And but this particular night, I stayed too long, and I'm standing next to this guy, and then the guy that I was there with, and another guy on the other side of me, and this female comes up and she pulls out a knife and she just really shanks this guy that was
Mm.
standing next to me. Honey, you talking about somebody dropped
You
whatever
know?
cooler, whatever was in
That
my
part.
hand.
Right.
Gotta go. Got Lord. Okay, Jesus. Okay, Lord.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
getting too close to me right here. And
Right.
so I left. I left the club that night, and I ain't never went back to one
Time
since.
back. Mm.
Because I was like, because I knew that there was a devil on my trail, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I knew that God was on my
Right.
trail too.
Right.
And I was at that point in my life where I had to make a choice.
Right.
You gonna either serve me, or
Right.
you just finna just because your life ends here.
Right.
One way or another, the
Right.
life you've been living is gonna end right here.
One way or
You
another.
either gonna
Right.
begin to live for me, or
Right.
you gonna go on into an eternal hell. And
Wow.
I was too scared to die. I wasn't ready to die.
Right. Right.
I mean, and look, did scared to live, but I sure was ready, scared to die. So I took my
Right.
chances on living at that point. And I just and he had no more problems out of me. I mean, I went through that year of running and in and out, and knew
Right.
I would, like I say, I could feel God's hand up on me. I could feel His presence. I would get
Hmm.
in the car and I would feel Him there, and it was just like heavy, and I was like, I was running though. I was trying to get away.
Trying to get away. That's like a child trying to run away
Mm-mm.
from their parent. Just got that whole that the hem of your shirt just running. I'm holding on to you.
Just run.
Just
hmm
running.
And trying to save you from your own crazy self, trying to save you
Right.
from your own self destruction. He's like, I'm
Right.
trying to save you.
Right.
How I'm gonna go in the club with you? Okay, I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna go in the club with you. I'm gonna go in the
Right.
club with you, and you gonna stuff gonna break out around you, and you gonna barely escape the edge of that sword. Oh,
Right.
you still want to go to the club? Okay, let's go
Right.
on up here. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you how. And people don't believe it though, but God will go there. He will
Right.
go there to get you
Yes.
out of there.
Right.
And I appreciate him for it because he sure delivered me.
And I thank
And
God for that too, because I don't know where
and
I we would be if that would have happened. That's for
mm,
sure.
ooh,
That's
ooh, honey, because I showed it. Look, and at that time, young and dumb, didn't have no house in order. Didn't have no house in order, honey. That
right.
somebody would have been, and they didn't have GoFundMe back then.
You're not gonna fund
Honey, I
me.
don't know. No, they didn't have to GoFundMe. I don't know how it would have been buried. I don't know how. I don't know because it would have been
Right.
somebody else's burden because of my foolish lifestyle.
Right.
But I
Right.
thank God. I thank God for His grace. I thank
Amen.
God for it.
Amen. So for someone that is going through the journey that you have been through and have by the grace of God come through, what advice would you give to them now while they're running? I'll say it like that. While they're running, um, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Stop running. You're running from love. You're running from something bigger than you. And you're running towards destruction. The word of God said he chasing those whom he loves.
Mm-hmm.
He gonna chase you and he gonna chasing you.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people don't know that they're going through things because God is trying to draw them. And God is a God of love. God is a God of patience. And but yet at the same time, His mercy, there's a time where He's done, where He
Mm-hmm.
will cut out because you can't keep rejecting Him and thinking that He's gonna keep
Right.
coming for you,
Right. Right.
and that's where I had to come to the point where understanding that I'm rejecting God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rejecting breath. I'm rejecting life. I'm
Right.
rejecting so much because God is so big and God is so good. And
Right.
so when you're rejecting God, you're cleaving to death. You're cleaving
Mm-hmm.
to destruction because you can't have them both. And that's
Right.
what we have to understand. The word of God said, "Choose ye this day
This
whom
day.
ye shall serve." And
Mm-hmm.
so you can't serve two God. You can't serve God and mammon. You can't serve God and yourself.
Right.
We have to be willing to say, "Okay, Lord, I'm done running.
Yes.
I don't want it to take death, destruction to
Right.
get me to hearing to submitting to you because that's not his it's not his that's not his plan. The word of
Right.
God said it's with loving kindness that I draw you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so he's wanting to draw us with a love and with kindness, and yet he's like, okay, so you want that world like that? That world that
Right.
good to you?
Right.
That abusive relationship that good to you?
Right.
That them drugs that's killing you, they that good to you?
Right.
That drink, that club life, that's is that good to you? And
Right.
then and God will show you that no, it is destruction. And that's what he showed me. While I'm so busy trying to enjoy myself, God's
Mm-hmm.
saying you're killing yourself and you're putting
Right.
yourself in harm's way. And so I would definitely say don't run.
Right.
Don't submit. It's
Right.
easier to submit. If you submit, you get rewarded. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't, you get destruction. You get trouble.
Right.
Because he could have cut me off. I know
Right.
people that have been cut off. I know
Mm-hmm.
people. That stayed out there too long. No man
Right.
knows the day nor the hour.
Right.
But when God is drawing you, the Word of God tells us, like He said, the day that you hear my voice, harden not your heart.
Not your heart. Mm-hmm.
And so I was hardening my heart, but at the same time I was talking to him saying, Lord, just one more time, just one more
Right.
again. And God's
Right.
okay, one more again. And I'm thinking I got this thing down, and God said, yeah, one more, you got one more time.
Right.
He's saying one more
Right.
time, and I'm saying one more time, but his one more time was different.
Right.
But thanks be to God. God is that God of love. He is that God that will draw you. He is that God that will make your crooked places straight. He is
Right.
that God that will make your rough places smooth. He is
Right.
that God that'll take your nightmare and turn it, and you look at your life and you be like, wow, I never would have dreamed
Mm. Right.
that I would be in the place that I'm in now. God is a God of transformation.
Yes, indeed.
And when you look, and that's why the scripture also tells us, he said, if any man be in Christ, he is a new
Yeah.
creature.
Okay.
Meaning what?
Mhm.
God has a way of changing us. Now
Right.
when I see myself in the mirror, I don't see that 18, 19, year
Right.
old person that's just wilding out, mad at the world because the world had been so mean and cruel to him or her. I'm
Right.
not I'm not that person anymore, because now the world that I serve is not the world that I live in. You
Right.
know, we are royal priesthood. We're from a different kingdom, and because
Mhm.
though we live in this world, we're not of it. And so the world that I'm living in, yeah, I'm here. I see the walls. I
Right.
see where I'm at. I see the stuff that's
Right.
happening. But my
Right.
world, I've
Mhm.
invited God in. And because
Right.
I've invited God into my world is totally different than what it
Right.
used to be. Because
Right.
this girl wouldn't have never been married, man. Please, I was too big of a whore. I was too busy
Right.
whoring around. I wouldn't have been married.
Right. Right.
I wouldn't have been a good mom to my kids because
Right.
I didn't have that, and but when God saw something good in me that he felt like he could make something good out of, and
Right.
he saw my brokenness, he saw my hurt, and God sees our hurts. He sees
Right.
the whys. He sees the whys. He sees why we're angry. He sees why we're mad. He sees the why where people don't see it. God sees it,
Right.
and so because He sees it, He knows how to get us over that thing.
Right.
And but we have to be yielded to
Mhm.
allow that to happen. So stop running. Tell them stop running, Tony. Say don't run.
Stop running. Stop running. Stop
Mm.
running. Because I can truly say that for myself. Though my roots are from, of course, my mom and everyone else that are in my in my bloodline are somewhere in the bloodline of ministry, but
Yeah.
I was running as well. So knowing that I had someone I can look up to and be like, okay, you know, this is the right way. Somebody who taught me the right way, taught me the things of God. Though, like she said, she wasn't perfect. Nobody's perfect. No mother is perfect. I still call her sometimes, like, listen, I'm sorry for all the things I've done because I have children, and they make me cry sometimes.
Yeah.
And I be like, Lord, let me call mama and apologize. Did I act like that? Lord, forgive me. But
Yeah.
I be like, Lord, Jesus. So,
Oh, Mama, this what you was talking about.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
And
what that was
she'll tell you, I have called. I was like, this oldest
Yeah.
one, Lord, listen him. This is me
Yeah.
all over again. Made me want to bust him
Yeah.
right in the chest.
Yeah.
But just knowing that that example, is there, and if you have that example, as well, follow that example, to God, in God's way, and then yeah, again, stop running, because it's definitely, you get tired of running, child. You just get
You
tired.
do, child. You do.
You
Ooh,
just get
child.
tired.
You
You get
do.
tired. You be like, you know what, Lord? All right, it's just me and you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Either you gonna get tired or he gonna stop you. One of the two.
one of
One
the
of the
two.
two.
Yeah, because He will only
Yes.
let you go so far, and that's
Yes.
that's the benefit of knowing God. He'll let you go. Okay, like she said, when she tried to go to the club, like, I'm gonna let you go this far. I'm gonna let you get this little drink here. Enjoy a little
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes or whatever. But this shank is coming your way. You don't see it, but it's coming. So,
And I'm
and
gonna
I'm gonna
protect. Listen, I'm
snatch you
gonna
right there.
protect you while you're here.
Right,
I'm gonna protect
exactly.
you while you're here, and you gonna
Right,
know you ain't supposed to be here. And then
right.
I start hearing people say, "Why you here? You ain't belong
That I
here."
was just about to say. The enemy will look at you in your face and say, "Why are you here? You don't even belong here." Like,
Mm-hmm.
like you got this light above you, like this bright light above you, and or around you or in you, and all this darkness. Like, why is this person even, like, what? You don't even belong. You're like a puzzle that
Mm-hmm.
trying to fit into a part that don't even go to the puzzle that
Don't
is
fit.
being fit. Yeah,
Don't even
so
fit. Mm-hmm.
don't even fit. So yeah, like she said, start running, give yourself to God, because it's the best decision you will ever,
You could
ever,
ever
ever make,
make,
ever
ever
make.
make,
So there is,
ever.
I know you said a lot about the, advice, but Any last words you would like to give, other than stop running?
Be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
I think we in a time now where um, you know, we got to be real with people. We have to
Mm-hmm.
be real. We have to be 100.
Mm-hmm.
And because somebody need your realness, um,
Yes.
so that they can really get free from their dilemma.
Yes.
There are some things that we've gone through in life that is some maybe hard to share.
Right.
It may be hard to confess. It may be shameful.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the
Mm-hmm.
things that I've gone through, I was ashamed.
Right.
But it was that was what God wanted to use.
Right.
That was what He wanted to really get the glory out of, and the enemy had me ashamed,
Right.
and so had me at times not want to, you know, be real in what I was feeling, what I was going through. We live in a time now where the church don't talk about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
We shout over everything, we dance over everything, we speak in
Right.
tongues over everything.
Right.
But when it really comes down to getting our hands dirty, and really
Mm-hmm.
helping people out of these trenches, or getting in the
Yes.
trenches and helping people out of
Yeah.
these ditches,
Mm-hmm.
it takes transparency,
Right.
because the word of God tells us like this. He said Jesus came, he didn't come for the whole, he came for the sick.
Right.
He said if you whole, you don't need a physician.
Right.
We need Jesus because we sick. We need Jesus because we're not whole.
Right.
And the only way that we can become whole is to become real,
Right.
and quit pretending.
Right.
And that's one thing that I've always prayed, is that God, I want to be real in everything.
Yes.
I want to be real.
Yes.
And if my real me, and when I say real me, I'm not talking
Hmm.
about, you just being mean and nasty and
Right.
ugly to
Right.
people,
Right.
and that might be the real you, but then you need to be transformed if that's the real you.
Right.
But when I talk about being real, I'm talking about real experiences and how
Mm-hmm.
I really felt while I was going through that thing,
Right.
and how hard was it for me to come out of that thing.
Right.
And I remember, and I'm gonna share this, and I know we
Mm-hmm.
probably no doubt past time,
You're
but
fine.
I'll share this though. Back to my stepdad,
Mm-hmm.
or my adopted dad. I didn't want to come back to Dallas because my life here was messed up,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like, I didn't want to go back and relive those things. I didn't want to go
Right.
back and face those things. But God told me, He said, I'm taking you back so that you can master what had mastered you, and I want to use you there. And so I finally submitted, and we came on back, because you can be a rebel in God, trying
Right.
not to obey what He give you to do. And so
Right.
I submitted, and I came on back. And so and my husband would always tell me, he said, "Babe, you got that book in you. You can't finish that book until
Mm-hmm.
you deal with your deal with your stepdad." And I
Right.
was like, I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him. I
Right.
don't know how I would respond to him. While
Right.
while I'm not seeing him, I'm cool. I'm all
Right.
right. But if I see him, I don't know what that's
Yeah.
going to trigger. I don't know how I'm going to
Right.
feel. And
Right.
so I didn't say it to him, but I would say
Mm-hmm.
it to God. I said, God, I don't want that. I don't want to see
Right.
him. I'll
Right.
testify all day, but I don't want to see him.
Right.
And so anyway, he passed a few years ago, and I remember in his passing, I was like, okay, I'm done. I ain't got to
Wow.
deal with it no more now. I ain't got to
Right.
worry about seeing him. And then
Right.
God said, go to the funeral,
Mm.
and I'm like, huh? Go to the funeral. Here, you're gonna get your closure. And
Wow.
so I go to the funeral, and I'm looking at my cousins that I ain't seen in years. I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
at, my adopted sisters, my brothers that I ain't seen in years,
Mm-hmm.
and they some of them knew what I went through and some of them didn't.
Right.
And so anyway, I'm sitting there, and I'm hearing, how people are really talking about this man,
Wow.
and how grievous he was to so many, and
Mm.
yet those that loved him, they loved him.
Right.
Everybody have their own experience with people, and that's what
Right.
you base your relationship on. So anyway, And so everybody was speaking, and I'm sitting there like, wow, and I hear God say, stand up. I want you to share. And so when the opportunity came, I stood up, and my adopted sister and brother, they was like, you want me to go up there with you? And I was like, yeah, you can go, but I didn't really need nobody. The Lord was leading.
Right.
And they didn't
Right.
know which way I was coming anyway, right?
Right.
And so I get up and I tell the people, basically do my eulogy of my dad, my adopted dad.
Mm-hmm.
And the words that I was speaking, I'm hearing God say, you don't know why or how, the reason that a person is built the way that they are.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
don't know what they've gone through to become the person that they are. And
Right.
whether they're mean or whether they're kind, you
Right.
don't know their story. And so God just began to show me that. And so as I was speaking that particular day, I said, I refuse to let unforgiveness bind me.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone to judgment. He's already there. God already dealing with him. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what that judgment is. I can't say.
Right.
While everybody else may want to say their piece, I'm just going to
Right.
say I don't know. And
Right.
and so anyway, and when I say be transparent, um, sometimes our transparency is a prescription of healing. And
Mm-hmm.
so while I was speaking that particular during that time, I could literally feel the presence of God coming over me, and showing me that now the wound is closed
Wow.
because you have now released him, not just because he's deceased,
Right.
but because God began to show me that people do what they do because of the things that's poured into them,
Wow.
and it's not their fault. I mean, it's not no by no means that they're
Right.
justified in their behavior, but
Right.
it gives you a sense of saying, okay, Lord, that means he was a mean kid and he was and somebody
Right.
was mean to him as a
Right.
kid, and
Right.
so it just kind of trickles down, and so somebody somewhere has to reverse the curse. And
Mm.
guess what? That's what I did.
Wow.
I reversed the curse because I took authority when it came to my family, when it came to my kids, that
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they might got some bruises, but one thing they didn't get
Right.
was beat. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
They may have got some scratches, but guess one thing they
Right.
didn't do is get stabbed.
Right.
They didn't get no
Right.
gunshots.
Right.
They're whole.
Right.
They're whole enough. From my hands being on them,
Right.
and so we've got to be transparent and be willing to forgive, be willing to understand one another, because everybody comes from somewhere and everybody has a story. And, we have to be able to discern that,
Right.
And so if I can't say nothing else, forgive,
Mm-hmm.
forgive, forgive. Because for when you forgive, you're not forgiving for that person, you're forgiving for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I have a peace of mind. When I
Mm-hmm.
left that funeral that day,
Mm-hmm.
I ain't finished this book. I just ain't done it. But it ain't that I can't do it. I just hadn't done it.
And we still
You
waiting.
know. And so I can finish that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm good. And I don't have those emotional attachments anymore because I'm good.
Right.
Why? Because I forgave. I forgave the things that I had no control over. I
Right.
forgave me for the
Right.
times that I felt guilty of not speaking when
Mm.
I probably
Right.
could have or should have, even
Right.
if I felt like I wasn't going to be believed. I
Right.
forgave me. I forgave the whole situation,
Mm-hmm.
and that's if I can't say nothing else, forgive, 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 and be forgiven.
Wow. That's like I said, that's a whole nother that's a whole nother
Whole nother
story right there. I
podcast.
don't forget. Yeah, I don't forgiveness. That's all because when you forgive yourself, that's a whole nother, a whole nother level.
You got to forgive yourself. You got
I
to
agree.
forgive yourself. You can't hold yourself and you can't
Right,
hold yourself bound. You got to forgive yourself. You have
right,
to. You have
right,
to forgive yourself for being human and just not listening sometimes. And I have.
right,
I've forgiven myself for skipping school. I forgave myself for being in a place where I shouldn't have been, and I've
wow,
forgiven myself. You know, I'm okay. I've forgiven
Right.
myself for having kids, and their dads, not being a part of their dads not really being a part of their life. I
Right.
forgave me for that, and I've
Right.
repented to them, y'all.
Right. Right.
And it's like I've forgiven myself for that because I can't change it.
Right.
What can I do?
Right.
I mean, I can't. I mean, Nicodemus said, "Can I go back into the womb and be born again?"
Right.
No, you can't.
No.
You
Right.
can't start this journey over. It have already began. And everything that have happened, guess what? It's gonna turn for your good if
It
you
is.
learn how to let go and let God put it all together.
Put it all together because he the professional puzzle maker right
What
there.
you say? He is
Yeah,
the
he
potter.
is the yes, indeed, indeed, indeed. So, how can others find you if they want to reach out to you to with for anything? How can they reach you or find you?
Oh, they can talk to you. No, I'm just playing.
Nah, okay, well, you
They can
can
talk to you though.
come to
But I do have a Facebook page, Evangelist Suzanne Neal.
me.
I also have a Women of Excellence page. That is the Women of Excellence International
Hmm.
Facebook page.
Hmm.
I have an email address, Evangelist Neal. That's Evangelist Neal, Neal, at yahoo.com. You can reach me that way. And hey, Instagram, Evangelist Suzanne Neal. I'm out there.
Yeah,
That's
she out there everywhere.
SUZANNE. Yep.
Yeah, they'll know how to spell it when I put it out there. But I definitely, of course, as always, enjoy our conversations. A lot of that stuff, y'all, I ain't gonna lie, I ain't even know because I'm sitting here like, what, what happened?
Yeah, I said that. I think I said that about 30 minutes ago. I know Tony probably over there saying, "Huh? What?
I was
Yeah,
like, Rob, the
yeah."
obituary, what? Wait a
Yes,
minute.
yes, yes. I
Yeah.
saw us on the front page of the Dallas Times Herald, and people that are from Dallas, they know that
Wow.
was a real paper. Yes,
So that was, I'm sure
yes.
if you go on Google, you'll be able to find it. So Google has
Well,
everything. Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. I think they may have went out before Google became, but I'm sure
oh,
something is out
gotcha.
there. It's probably gonna be tied to Dallas Morning News, though. I'm
Hmm.
sure.
We're
But
not
yeah,
gonna we're not gonna age you. So
yeah. Hey, hey,
so about
look,
before Google
look.
came.
I will look, girl. But I will, cause guess what? The devil didn't want me to live this long, so I
Nah,
tell it,
for real.
honey, cause
Nah, for
he was
real.
trying to kill me back then,
No, that's what he should have
and
did.
thanks
Should have
be
killed
to
me back then,
hey.
cause homeboy, I'm coming for you this time.
Look, he couldn't. He tried. He tried, and
Right.
God said, "No, no, you
Yeah.
can't. You can't kill
Mm.
her. You can't kill her. There's purpose there, and she got to birth out these children.
It's
Look,
cheering.
and then they cheering. They got to grow up and declare the works of the Lord.
And it ain't just us four. It's so many others. Y'all just don't know.
It is.
So
It is.
so
It
many
is.
others. But again, like I really, as usual, always enjoy our conversations. To know that
Yeah.
a daughter can come to her mother and be like, "What happened? Why am I like this?"
Yeah.
Things. You can be transparent with your children because in order, like you said, the parent has to be transparent with the children so that they'll know they
Mhm.
won't go through these reruns over and over and over
Mhm.
again. And even if they do, they have that one they can lean back on and be like, you know what, mom or dad or whatever,
Mhm.
and if the mother and father has been transparent so they know how to deal with certain things.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm very definitely grateful for, and I'm always calling my mama. so
Yep.
but yeah, I'm definitely grateful for this conversation. I had a feeling it was gonna last this long anyway, so I wasn't doing no. There's no time. There's literally no time on this thing. I just, if I gotta split it up, I split it up. But I definitely enjoyed the conversation, and I know that your testimony will help other people. When the book comes out, as far as the Shame of Tamar, the conference, all the good old stuff that's coming up, y'all
Yep.
follow her so y'all will know everything that's coming up.
Yep.
And then it's gonna help so many, so many women and men and children.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like you said, the church don't talk about a whole lot of stuff, but
Mhm.
when somebody get their real deliverance is when they get one of those conversations. So I'm definitely grateful to be
Absolutely.
a part of it. Definitely be grateful to be a part of it. So soon as I get done with the editing and all that good old stuff, I will definitely let you know
Okay.
when the post date will be, and you'll be the first to be able to listen and go from there. Um, yeah, so we'll definitely stay in touch for sure for life.
For life. For life,
Because
honey.
I can't say what I usually say. This is a lifetime friendship. All this other stuff. I can't say that. 'Cause this is a
No,
lifetime
you
thing
got my
for real,
face.
for real. I do,
Look, you
y'all.
got my face.
Look, and I'm gonna go back and listen to this. I'm like, can I distinguish our voices? Because because sometimes I do sound like, dang, that sound like Suzanne for real. Ooh, Lord help us, help us, Lord. So I'm gonna
Well,
have to,
I
y'all
be
know.
saying, I say that too. I be like, ooh, shoot, that was anime speaking out just then,
Nah,
honey.
for real. Nah, for real. I
Mm-hmm.
be sounding like her too. I be like, y'all know what, Lord, this bloodline is too deep for me. This is too much.
Mm-hmm. I be like, ooh,
but
ooh, yes. All right,
definitely, but I will
sweetness.
definitely let you know whenever it posts, and I will be calling you soon.
All right, love you, babe.
I love you too.
Okay, bye bye.
Thank you for listening to Let's Be Real 100%, when we're 100% real about life. We hope that you enjoyed the topic today, and we hope that you trust God more and more each day. And we hope to see you next week.